What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Boombox Guru, music commentary and music discussion for music lovers. I'm your host, LB, and we got a very good episode for you guys today. So if you don't want to miss out, tune in and keep it locked in. What's good, everyone? Want to thank you all for joining me for this new episode of the Boombox Guru. Of course, I'm your host, LB, and I'm really excited about this episode because I'm doing an album review from my favorite artist of all time, which is Prince. This episode is going to be about his third album, Dirty Mind, released on October the 9th, 1980. So this year and this month actually made it the 40th anniversary of this album's release. So I thought this would be the perfect time to do an album review and talk about the songs and just how groundbreaking and genre bending this record was, especially at the time that it was released back in 1980, because this record really raised eyebrows. It was a huge turning point for Prince's career, and it just showed people what this guy was capable of as a musician, as an artist. You know, he just really took a complete 180 compared to his previous two albums. So I definitely wanted to go ahead and just really dive into this record because it's one of my favorite albums from Prince. It's an album that I listen to quite a bit. So I definitely wanted to go ahead and dive in on this album. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing started. And let's talk about Dirty Mind. Okay, so the album kicks off with the title track, known as Dirty Mind. And the song begins with this kind of minimalist synth riff and this bass drum kick. And then after that plays for a few minutes, the album kicks off into what I describe as this kind of funky, new wave-ish pop rock type track. And I know Prince hated the word new wave, but that's what this song kind of sounds like. It sounds like early 80s new wave. But the song is actually about having sexual thoughts. Because in the song, he's describing the way this woman is making him feel every time he sees her, every time he's around her. For instance, in the first verse, he says, "There's something about you, baby. It happens all the time. Whenever I'm around you, baby, I get a dirty mind. It doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter who's around. Doesn't matter. I just want to lay you down." And then in the second verse, he goes on to say, "In my daddy's car, it's you I really want to drive. But you never go too far. I may not be your kind of man. I may not be your style. But honey, all I want to do is just love you for a little while." So that's basically what this song is about. It's just Prince having these sexual thoughts about a woman that either he's already with, and when he's around her, she makes him feel that way, or it's just a woman that he's really into or he's attracted to. And this is what goes on in his mind every time he sees her. And I also like the third verse where he says, "If you got the time, I'll give you some money to buy a dirty mind. Don't misunderstand me. I never fool around, but honey, you got me on my knees. Won't you please let me lay you down?" But it's a really cool song. And one interesting thing about this song is that it really doesn't have a chorus. It really doesn't have a hook. I mean, it has one chorus where it says, "I really get a dirty mind whenever you're around. It happens to me every time. You just got to let me lay you, got to let me lay you, got to let me lay you down," which I don't really think that's a chorus. I think it's really part of the song, more so like the lyrics or a bridge maybe. But the song really doesn't have a chorus. It's just broken up into these 4 different verses. And the keyboard riff and things that are in this song were actually written by Prince's band member, Dr. Fink, who was one of the keyboardists in the band, which I thought he did a really awesome job on this, but he's going to do an even better job later in the album. But yes, this song was the second single, and I think it was a moderate hit. I don't really know how high it hit up on the charts, but it's definitely a friend favorite amongst the Prince friend base. I'm using friend instead of fan because Prince he always hated the word fan. But one thing I wanted to point out is the keyboard riff and the bass drum kick that I mentioned about in the beginning of the song. As I was going back listening to this album for this review, I noticed that for me at least, that synth riff and the bass drum kick kind of reminds me of a heartbeat. It kind of mimics a heartbeat in some ways. And I don't know, I could be overthinking this because I tend to do that, but if that's the case, I can see how that would apply to this song, because when you have sexual thoughts about someone that you're with or that you want to be with, it tends to get the blood rushing. It tends to get the heart rate rushing, and your heart starts to beat a little faster. And that's what I feel that keyboard riff and that bass drum kick are kind of mimicking. And I don't know if Prince did things like that, if he did that deliberately. I know Prince he's known to do things like that in songs. A lot of stuff he does in his songs weren't necessarily accidents. A lot of things he would do were calculated in some ways. But that's just something I wanted to point out. I don't know if any of you listen to the song, if you will get the same thought, but that's just what I felt, that it was mimicking a heartbeat, kind of similar to when you're having sexual thoughts about someone that you want to be with. So then we go to the next song, which is called When You Were Mine. And this song right here is actually one of Prince's most popular songs. It's probably the most popular song off this record. I know that as years went on, it became a staple in his live performances. He kept it in his live sets. When You Were Mine is more of a 50s rockabilly punk rock type inspired song. You will definitely get that feeling when you hear it. And Prince was actually inspired to write this song from listening to John Lennon. And I think it's interesting to note that when the same year that this record was released, John Lennon was actually murdered too in 1980. But the song is actually about a guy who was in a relationship with a woman who treated him pretty terribly. I mean, she did everything. She slept with his friends. She took money from him. Here in the first verse, Prince says, "When you were mine, I gave you all of my money. Time after time, you done me wrong. It was just like a train. You let all my friends come over and meet. And you were so strange, you didn't have the decency to change your sheets. Change the sheets." Pretty despicable on that lady's part. But the thing that's so crazy about it is that Prince, or maybe not Prince, but whoever the guy is in this story, they're still in love with this woman. They're still pawning over her. And if we go to the second verse, it says, "When you were mine, you were kind of sort of my best friend. So I was blind. I let you fool around. I never cared. I never was the kind to make a fuss when he was there, sleeping in between the two of us." I thought this was an interesting verse because there's been theories floating around that either this verse kind of alludes to that the guy in this story and the girl and another guy were like in this threesome type relationship, or that it was more metaphorical of the guy knowing that this woman was fooling around with somebody else, but he just didn't care. He wanted to be with her so much that he didn't care that she was doing him wrong. But Prince seemed to write a lot of songs around this era where the guy seemed to be in a more submissive role, and the woman kind of just walked all over them, and they didn't really do much about it. They still wanted to be with them. But I don't know if that was a reflection of what Prince may have been dealing with at the time, or maybe it was just a story that he heard one of his friends telling and he inspired to write. I don't know, but he seemed to write a lot of songs like this during this period, although that would change in later years. But this song is definitely a fan favorite. Excuse me, I said fan again. I meant friend favorite. And, it's still considered a widely popular song amongst the friend base. And I think up until Prince's death, he kept it as a staple in his live sets. And another interesting thing is that even though this song was never officially released as a single, it's been included on several of Prince's greatest hits albums. I know My first time hearing it was on his The Hits compilation album that came out back in 93. It was either on the first or second disc, but that was my first time actually hearing this song. But it's a great song. It's definitely one of my favorites from the album, and I'm sure you guys will love it too when you hear it. So the next song on this album is called Do It All Night. And this song right here it's more of a funky, up-tempo dance number. And there's not too much of a story that goes along with this song. It's more of like a party song. It's more a song that you put on when you want to party. And if there was a story, it's probably that Prince is basically talking to a young woman, and he's telling her that he wants to have sex with her all night. And here's the first verse where he says, "Pardon me, I want to talk to you. I may be kind of shy, but I just got to tell you what I'm going through. Someone over there says he wants to get to know you. I don't care because I really want to hold you. I'm so scared. Girl, he might do something to you that you like. Now, I've been waiting such a bloody long time just to get this close to you. Now that you're near me, I want you to hear me. I'll tell you what I want to do." And it goes into the chorus, "Oh, I want to do it all night." And we all know do it meant sex back in those days. And that's crazy, reading this lyric right here where he says, I didn't realize that he was actually trying to be a wingman for another guy, and Prince just pretty much just swooped in and he got the girl herself. I didn't realize that. That's even more interesting. And then in the second verse he goes, "Giving up so easy is something that I never do. But I'm so easy when it comes to loving you. Can't you understand that I want to hug and kiss you? I'll do anything I can just to give you happiness. And I drown, baby, in your arms. Come on, baby. Can't you get to this? I've been waiting such a bloody long time, and you're talking to someone else. Now that I've got your attention, there's something I want to mention." And it goes into the chorus again. Man, that's really slick right there. That's some slick game that Prince is kicking right there. But yeah, that's basically what this song is about. It's about him approaching a woman that he's been wanting. And I didn't realize until I read these lyrics that he was doing it for a friend, and he's actually swooping in there trying to get the girl himself. But that's really what the song is about. It's not too much of a big story, but it's definitely a great funky number for parties, for social gatherings and stuff like that. Even when I listen to the song, I find myself kind of bobbing my head or sometimes even dancing to it. It's a real catchy song, and I really enjoy it. So now we go to track number 4, and this song is called "Got a Broken Heart Again." And I usually kind of view this song as somewhat of an extension of When You Were Mine. It kind of has a similar subject matter, or maybe the same, but just not in depth. But the song, this is the closest to being a ballad on this album. And it's not really a ballad, because when you think of a ballad, it's kind of slow. It's really slow and mellow or whatever. This song is a bit of a mid-tempo type rock track. And I will be honest, initially, in the past, when I would hear this song, I really didn't care for it that much. I usually would skip it. But as I was listening to this song over again, it has actually become one of my favorite songs on the album, because I noticed that it has a early 1950s rock and roll style to it. Especially at the end where Prince, he does this brief guitar solo that has that 50s rock and roll bluesy style to it. That's really amazing. And even the subject matter goes along with it, because it's about a guy having a broken heart. And that's what a lot of the blues musicians talked about, having broken hearts and such. So I just think it's a great song. And it's about a guy who loses his woman to his friend. His friend comes in and steals his lady, because it says right here in the first verse, "I've got a broken heart again, because my only supposed to be friend, you see, he stole my old lady away from me, and now I'm just as blue as I can be." But the thing is, and this is why I say this song connects to When You Were Mine, because even though his friend stole this woman from him, and she went on with the friend, he still wants her. The guy in this story still wants her. Because check out verse 2. He says, I've got a broken heart again because I ain't got no money to spend. You see, I spent it all on a long distance phone call begging her to please come home. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, man. Like that's what I was saying, that for whatever reason during this period, Prince was writing a lot of songs where guys were being, or allowing the women they were being with to mistreat them or to walk all over them. So I don't know. I honestly don't know if that was a reflection of something that he was going through. And then in the last verse 3, it says, it doesn't matter what I do, I can't stop thinking about you. The little things you said, the things you would do to me in bed. Oh baby, I can't get you out of my head. Oh, I got a broken heart again. This time it's serious. It feels like the end, because once your love has gone away, there ain't nothing left to say. And then the song ends, and there's like you hear like this door slam. And I've heard different people who reviewed this album say, one in particular, a YouTuber named Prince's friend, he said that he always viewed that door slamming at the end as like Prince closing his heart on, like he was like closing his heart, or he was like closing his heart on like the ballads or whatever and moving on, something to that effect. But it's a great song, and like I said, I really enjoy how he took that 50s rock and roll approach on this song. I really dug it, and that's something that kind of I felt throughout the album, is that kind of early 50s rock and roll style. So I think Prince was definitely inspired by that and listening to a lot of those type of records during the recording of this record. But it's a great rock ballad, if you want to call it a ballad. Now we get to track number 5, which is called Uptown. And Uptown was actually the first single off of this album. Now this song right here is one of my all-time favorite Prince songs. If I had a list of my top 10 Prince songs, if that was possible, this song would probably be in the top 5. I really like it that much. And also, the first time that I heard this song was on the Hits compilation album. So this song is more of a funk rock track, a little bit more up tempo, definitely a lot more danceable. And in spite of all of that, though, the song actually is probably one of the first. It's one of the first instances of Prince's political views. The song is actually about issues such as racism and prejudice, things that even today that we still have to deal with, whatever. And he's using Uptown as a metaphor to describe this utopian type place where people are free of these issues, where people are free of prejudice, racism, discrimination, whatever it is that's going on out here in the world. He's describing Uptown as a metaphor, as a utopian for that. And it's also interesting to note that Uptown is an actual area in Minneapolis, Prince's hometown. I don't know if it still is, but I know during this period it was a place where a lot of artists and musicians frequent. And I believe it was kind of like this bohemian type culture that was very vibrant in that area. I don't know if it's still like that now, but I do know during the recording of this album, during this period, that's the type of vibe and style that was happening in that particular area. But the first verse goes, she saw me walking down the streets of your fine city. It kind of turned me on when she looked at me and said, come here. Now, I usually don't talk to strangers, but she looked so pretty. What can I lose if I just give a little ear? What's up, little girl? I ain't got time to play. Baby didn't say too much. She said, are you gay? Kind of took me by surprise. I didn't know what to do. I just looked her in her eyes and said, no, are you? Said to myself, she's just a crazy, crazy, crazy little mixed up dame. She's just a victim of society and all its games. So I think that part where she says, baby didn't say too much. She said, are you gay? During this period, there was all this kind of talk about Prince's sexuality and things of that nature. So I think that part right there is a reference of that. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking at it on Genius, it says a common misconception about Prince is that he dresses effeminately, so he must be gay. His response hints at his humor and his controversial views. Yeah, because when this album came out, Prince, he took on a very more like androgynous image, which had people questioning his sexuality and things of that nature. So I think that verse, this whole line in the first verse, is more of him like kind of taking a shot at that. So it goes into a pre-chorus, which this pre-chorus is actually one of my favorite Prince quotes of all time. And I actually posted this on Instagram like a few months back. But it says, "Now where I come from, we don't let society tell us how it's supposed to be. Our clothes, our hair, we don't care. It's all about being there." I really like that quote, man. It's definitely something that you can apply to your life and just maybe choose to live by or whatever. It's definitely something that it's definitely a quote that I really dig from Prince. And I think it's one of his best quotes to come from a song. So more about this song, it says Prince wrote virtual liner notes in the mid-90s for some of his biggest hits as a feature on one of his first websites. And his entry for Uptown was a favorite concert number during this period, the anthem for all the freaks and funketeers of the Dirty Mind generation. He says vocal recorded in one take, no punching in after. And he recorded this in his 16-track home studio setup on the soundboard, plugged in the mic, and left his leather coat on the chair. He went to get pumped at a movie, and when it was all over, walked straight into the studio, donned the leather coat, sang it straight out. He didn't listen to it until the next day and then began finishing it. So he just knocked this song out of the park, no question. But it's a really good song. I just really dig the kind of funk rock vibe of it, because it's a funky track, but then there's these breakdowns during like the pre-chorus where he adds that element of rock into it that's really cool. And the chorus goes, "Everybody's going uptown, that's where I want to be. Uptown, set your mind free. Uptown, got my body hot. Get down, I don't want to stop, no." And then you go to verse 2, where he's addressing more of like the freedom of like discrimination and racism and things, where he says, "As soon as we got there, good times were rolling. White, black, Puerto Rican, everybody just a freaking. Good times were rolling. She started dancing in the streets. Girl, she just gone mad. You know, she even made love to me. Best that I ever had." So hey, Prince he ended up getting that girl in the end in typical Prince fashion. Then the verse goes on, "I don't usually talk to strangers, this time it's alright. See, she got me hot, I couldn't stop. Good times were rolling all night, yeah." Really, really dig this song. It's one of my all-time favorite Prince songs. Definitely urge you guys to go check it out. I mean, it's just a very funky rock and roll type track, man. It's very danceable. It's definitely a song. It's another song on here that can get the party off, and I think it was probably the biggest hit. It was the biggest hit from Dirty Mind, actually. It was even bigger than the title track. And it has a really cool video too. That you guys can check out on YouTube, I urge you. But yeah, this song right here was one of the first instances of Prince starting to express his political views, because if you listen to his first two records, you really didn't get that. But this album right here, this album and this song in particular, was one of the first times that Prince really started to do that on albums, man. But really dig this song, and it's really cool how he pretty much just knocked this song out in one take. Well, he knocked the vocal part, but he just really just knocked this song out with no trouble. And I like the album version the best, because the album version has this really cool bridge part where the keyboards and synths become a lot more prominent. And I was listening to it on my way home from work one night, and I noticed how the keyboards and the synths had this very computerized type of vibe to them. So I thought that was really interesting to mention. All right, so now we're picking things up. Now this is where the album starts to get freaky as we go to track number 6. Track number 6 is simply called Head. Now, thus far, most of the songs, the titles on these albums have been pretty much straightforward. No metaphors or anything to make you sift through to really get the true meaning. So we already know what this song Head is about. And if you guessed that, yep, it's about oral sex, you're right. And this song is one of Prince's most well-known and most controversial songs. I mean, this track is about Prince and a woman who's on her way to be married performing oral sex on each other. And this song caused the stir in 1980 because it's a blatantly explicit song about oral sex. And Prince actually started performing this song live before he even recorded it and laid it down for this record. He started performing the song live during his first tour, which was the Prince tour, which I think was from 1979 to 1980 in promotion of his second album. But back then, it was really just a concert number that they would perform live. But the song it's the most explicit song on this record. This is the dirty part of the record. This is where it really gets freaky. And this song actually caused his original keyboardist, Gail Chapman, to leave the band. Because when he started recording this album, she was a part of a religious movement known as The Way. And she felt that the subject matter was just too strong for her. And I even read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, I read somewhere that when he was performing this song live, she would her and Prince would kiss each other on stage or whatever. I don't know if that's true. But this is the first appearance of Lisa Coleman in the band. Most of you know Lisa Coleman of Wendy and Lisa fame. And you know they were prominent members of the Revolution, during Purple Rain and a couple of albums after that. But yeah, Lisa Coleman of Wendy and Lisa fame. This was the first appearance of her on a Prince album. And this song was actually her initiation into the band, because Prince said that if she could perform this song, then she could do anything. And I really dig this track. It's another funky dance number. I know I heard this song on the movie Waiting to Exhale. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that movie, but there's a scene in the movie where the women are at this club or at this bar and the song is playing. It's definitely that type of song. It's a very up-tempo, funky dance track that will really get you on your feet when you hear it. Now, let's get into some of the verses on here. Now, the first verse, of course, is between him and Lisa Coleman. Prince is saying, "I remember when I met you, baby. You were on your way to be wed. You were such a sexy thing. I love the way you walked, the things you said. I was so nonchalant. I didn't want to be misled. I didn't want you to be misled. But I've got to have you, baby. I've got to have you in my bed." Then Lisa says, "But I'm just a virgin and I'm on my way to be wed. But you're such a hunk, so full of spunk." And then it kicks in the chorus where it says, "I'll give you head till you're burning up. Head till you get enough. Head till your love is red. Head, love you till you're dead." Which I thought the chorus was pretty slick. I kind of like that, especially the last part where it says, "Head till your love is red. Head, love you till you're dead." I thought that was really cool. But I really like verse 2, where there's only 2 verses on the song. I like the first 2 lines in verse 2. And here's why. Because Prince says, "You know you're good, girl. I think you like to go down. You wouldn't have stopped, but I came on your wedding gown." That's just a mic drop moment for me right there, man. I don't know what it is about those first 2 lines in this song, but I feel like that only Prince could really execute that line. I mean, it's a dirty line. It's nasty. But only Prince could take that and infuse some type of smoothness in it that would make it work. Because especially the first lines where he says, "You know you're good, girl. I think you like to go down." I mean, to me, the way he infused that and said that in the song, it makes you feel like, okay, let's say if I was a young lady and this type of act was going down with me, I just felt like if I was to say that to this young lady, or whatever, it would just make her want to do it even better. I just have to get that out there. But those two lines right there, I just really dig them, man. It just sounds like such slick game. But then the song continues, the verse continues, where she responds and she says, I must confess, I want to get undressed and go to bed. And then Prince comes back in and he says, with that I jammed, you fool, you married me instead. And that's another line I really dig, where he says, with that I jammed, which I take this part as, okay, she's done the oral part. Now she wants to go to bed and they have sex. And him saying, with that I jam meaning, okay, with that, well, we had sex and she enjoyed it so much that she decided to marry Prince. But then it goes into the chorus. It goes into like a bridge part where it's just repeating head over and over again. Now, the highlight of this song is the synthesizer solo, which was performed by Dr. Fink. He appears on here again. That synthesizer solo is so freaking wicked, man. It's like this very funky, sultry jazz type vibe to it. My words are not enough to describe it. You just gotta go and listen to the song and really just hear that solo. Man, Dr. Fink is very underrated as a synthesizer or keyboard player, man. He is so underrated. And this song right here really shows the talent of him, because he just went crazy with that solo. It's one of my favorite parts of the album. It's one of my favorite parts of the song. But yeah, it is one of my favorite parts of the album. I really like this song. It's just a really great funky number. It's one of Prince's most popular songs, although he did stop performing it live in later years after his conversion to one of Jehovah's Witnesses. He took it out of his live set, but he did perform it live for a number of years until his conversion to one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But it's an excellent song. I think it's one of Prince's most funkiest songs, and it's a favorite. And this song right here was not even released as a single, at least in the US. This song wasn't released as a single, but it was so popular that it's even been included on his greatest hits compilation. This was another song that I first heard on his hits compilation that came out back in '93. But definitely a great song. Prince really did his thing. He was nasty, but he was definitely smooth with it. He had some really great lines on this song. But we get to the next song on this album, called Sister. And if you thought Head was nasty, then you haven't heard anything yet when you get to Sister. This is Prince's most controversial song of his career. He has never, to my knowledge, publicly released any other song that was as controversial as this. And let me tell you why. Because Sister is about incest. Yes, it's about incest. And it definitely raised a lot of eyebrows back in the day. Now, there were rumors floating around that this song was actually based on a true story, that it was about Prince and his older stepsister named Sharon Nelson. But I did some research, and there's nowhere where it's confirming that this is a true story. All I found was that no, it's not true. It's a fictional fantasy that Prince just came up with, and he decided to write a song about it. Now, this song is the most punk rock on this album. Actually, I would just go ahead and say that it's a punk rock song. It pretty much has the same aesthetic of punk rock. It doesn't beat around the bush. It's just straightforward. It punches in and comes right in real fast and heavy. Well, not heavy, but just comes in real fast and a bit aggressive with a really cool guitar riff. And the song is very short. It only lasts for 1 minute and 31 seconds. So pretty typical of punk rock. Punk rock was always short and straight to the point. That's what this song does. But I wanted to read the first verse, at least, on this song, where he says, I was only 16, but I guess that's no excuse. My sister was 32, lovely and loose. She don't wear no underwear. She said it only gets in her hair. And it's got a funny way of stopping the juice. Man, my sister never made love to anyone else but me. She's the reason for my sexuality. She showed me where it's supposed to go. A blowjob doesn't mean blow. Incest is everything it's said to be. Yeah, you get the drift of what this song is about. But it's a controversial song. You can imagine what people thought about it back in 1980. I mean, this is it's some pretty heavy stuff. I think even now in today's time, it's still a bit of a it still raises eyebrows, honestly, because reading that first verse, I mean, whoa, he's pretty explicit with it. But it's still a great song. I mean, the subject matter is a bit heavy, but at the same time, sonically, how this is, for what I can tell, the only time Prince really went straight forward into punk rock. I think it's a pretty good song. I really enjoy it. The subject matter, yeah, it's a little cringy, and not in a corny way, but in a like, oh man, I can't believe he made a song called about incest. But that's what this record was supposed to do. It was supposed to shock people and make people make people's mouths drop open. So now we get to the last song on the album, but it's definitely not the lead song on the record. We get to the song known as Party Up. Now, this is another popular Prince track right here. It's another funky, upbeat dance number. And originally, this song didn't belong to Prince. It actually belonged to another local Minneapolis band known as Enterprise, which Morris Day was a member of. And I believe Morris Day was the one who wrote the song. Prince heard the song, and he liked it so much that he offered to buy it from Morris. I don't think Morris wanted to give the song up at first, but Prince made him an offer. He was like, hey, listen, I can buy the song from you for this amount, or if you give me the song, I'll do you a favor and make you the front man of this band that I'm putting together. And we all know that band will end up being The Time. And of course, Morris Day took the latter, and the rest is history. Now, this song on the surface, when you look at the title, it says Party Up. When you hear the song sonically, it sounds like a party song, which in a lot of ways it kind of is a party song, but there's a lot more to it than just it being about a party. This is actually another political song. This is Prince expressing his anti-war, anti-draft views. I think during this period, I think the Cold War was happening. I think this is what happened. I think relations between America and Russia weren't the best. But he doesn't get that deep into it, but he's just talking about how, hey, we just want to have a good time. We don't want to talk about war. We ain't trying to go to war. So we can read the first verse where he says, we don't give a damn, we just want to jam, party up. That army bag, I'm not sure if that's army bag. I think it might be army band, but it says that army bag, such a double drag, party up. Party, got to party down, baby. Revolutionary rock and roll, which I think that's interesting right there, where he says revolutionary rock and roll. To me, that's alluding to his backing band, because his backing band was known as the Revolution. Going uptown, baby. How you going to make me kill somebody I don't even know? They got the draft, I just laugh, party up. Fighting war is such a fucking bore. Party up, party got to party down, baby. Oh, it's all about what's in your mind. Going uptown, baby. I don't want to die, I just want to have a bloody good time. And the rest of it is here's a verse 2. It's really small. It says, because of their half-baked mistakes, we get ice cream, no cake. All lies, no truth. Is it fair to kill the youth? That part right there really isn't sung. It's more of like in a chant. Yeah, it's more of like in a chant style. But the rest of the song is just him repeating like party up, got to party up. And I like the last part where he says, the outro where he says, you're going to have to fight your own damn war because we don't want to fight no more. You're going to have to fight your own damn war because we don't want to fight no more. And he chants that until the song ends. But it's a really good song. I like how Prince really did a great job at making these party type songs, but fusing like real serious messages, political messages into them, which he's not the first or the last artist to do that, but I really like how he did it on here. And I like how he kind of alludes back to other songs, like where he says "Going Uptown, baby." That's, he's referencing the song Uptown, which is another political song on the album, was about being in this utopian place where you're free of all these issues that society is throwing at you. And I like how he says in the bridge where he says revolutionary rock and roll, where he's referencing his backing band, The Revolution. But yeah, this is an awesome song. And let's see, people have said this is what Terry Lewis is talking about, how Prince was out on tour. He took Morris with him. During that period, Prince was still working on some of his records, and he did a song with Morris called Party Up. He told Morris that if he did the song with him, he could take the credit and get paid for it, or do a band for him. Morris chose the band. So that's talking about what I mentioned earlier about, Prince wanting that song, and he doing Morris a solid by making him the front man of the time. But that's really cool. And it also says this song initially, it's talking about how the song initially belonged to the other band. But yeah, this is one of the first one or two of the songs on the album that really express Prince's political views on this record. And I think this song was a great way to end the album. Every song on this album is really solid, but I think this song was a really great way. He ended it out on like a high note, but at the same time he invoked a really dope message to go along with it. And also, before I forget, Prince and The Revolution actually performed this song on SNL back in 1981. And I think you can maybe find it on YouTube. I know I was looking for it the other day and I couldn't find it. But yeah, they did a very great performance of this song live on SNL back in 1981. And it's actually one of the greatest live performances on SNL. I remember watching a video about the greatest live performances on SNL, and that performance was one of them. So definitely check out the live performance of the song if you do get a chance. Dirty Mind was a huge departure for Prince. If you compare it to his first two albums, which presented a more R&B, funk, disco vibe, this record was a complete 180. Everything from the sound and even to Prince's image, because on the first album, For You, he had more of an Afro type look. The second album, he had straightened his hair to what it looks like if you go check out the cover of that record. But this record, on the cover art, he's wearing one of his signature trench coats with the gold plating on the shoulder. He's got nothing on underneath except for some Speedos and a bandana around his neck. And his hairstyle is totally different, man. His hairstyle is actually kind of a punkish look. But as soon as you look at that cover, I'm pretty sure back in 1980 when people picked this record up in the record stores and they saw the cover, I'm pretty sure that they were kind of taken aback a bit and were like, whoa, this is different, man. This doesn't look like the same guy on the cover of Prince. This is like a totally different dude. And then the music on here is so much different. I mean, the sounds on this record really ushered in the 80s. There's nothing on this record that harkens back to the past. Everything here is, okay, this is a new year. It's the beginning of a new decade. So you got a new sound. New sound, new image, new subject matter that really raised people's eyebrows back in the day. I know that this record probably stirred a lot of conversation in 1980 because it's not the first record to use explicit language or to be so blatantly open about sex. But I think it's one of the first records on more of a mainstream level that really just was pretty blatant about these type of topics. And then you got the song Sister, which was about incest. I mean, come on. I know that really had a lot of parents who had kids who were teenagers during this period probably had them taking the record and throwing it out the window or throwing it in the garbage. But this record was just such a radical departure for what Prince had already been doing, because you have to keep in mind that when his first album was moderately successful, but then Prince, his second record, really started climbing up. And I think, that record sold 1 million copies. Dirty Mind only sold maybe a fraction of that. Dirty Mind didn't sell as much as what the self-titled Prince album did. And it's not as radio accessible as that record was either. But Prince really didn't care about that. It seemed that he just wanted to make music that he wanted to make. If you think about it, man, he had already established sort of his own type of fan base. So he was more so reintroducing himself into a new year and into a new decade. But he was also kind of bursting out of his shell and making the type of music that he felt that he should be making. And the people that truly were fans of him, or should I say friends, they accepted it. They dug it. They thought it was a great album, and it was a critical success. It may not have been so hot commercially, but it didn't matter. The record is a great album. And I really like the raw punk aesthetic that he applied to this album. It's a real DIY effort, because Prince, he actually blew his budget on the first 2 records. So when he was recording Dirty Mind, he didn't really have much of a budget to go on. So all the songs were recorded in his home studio, his home 16-track studio. And the songs that you hear on this album are in their original demo form. So yes, he released this album, the songs on it, in the original demo form. He didn't go back and re-record them in an elaborate studio. No, these are the songs that he recorded in his home studio. And you can also tell that he was being influenced by a lot of the early rock and roll of the 50s and 60s. You can hear the punk influence that was in a lot of the songs, especially Sister. Sister is the most punk rock song on the album, and he really upped it up on the funk. This is one of Prince's most funkiest albums. I mean, songs like Head, Uptown, Party Up, he really turned it up on the funk. One thing that I want to talk about, though, and this is something that has dawned on me once again recently as I was revisiting this album for this review. You can tell, if you listen closely, you can tell that this record is kind of broken up into 2 themes. The first part of the record, it starts off with the song Dirty Mind. This is Prince being attracted to a young woman, or a woman that he's already with. I don't know. I'm going to say it's Prince being attracted to a young woman, and he begins having these lustful sexual thoughts about her. Then you go to the second track, When You Were Mine. He got the woman, but she turned out not to be good for him. I mean, she was terrible. Listen to the song. She cheated on him, took money from him, then she dumped him for another guy. Then we go to Do It All Night Long. So Prince, you could say, is back in the saddle. He meets another young lady who initially his friend sends him over to try to get her attention, but Prince is attracted to her. He wants her, and he confronts her about it. And he tells her that, yo, I've been wanting you for such a long time. Hey, I want to do it all night. So you could say that this young lady in this song could be like the rebound from the previous relationship. Then we go to Got a Broken Heart Again, where Prince is once again brokenhearted. Apparently, that situation with this young lady didn't work out. His friend came in and stole her. And I'm looking at this like Got a Broken Heart Again. You could say that from the previous song where Prince actually confronted this woman that his friend initially wanted, and he's telling her that he wants her. You could say that Got a Broken Heart Again could possibly be, okay, that relationship didn't work out, or he didn't really get that far with it. Maybe she decided to go on with a friend, and Prince is just feeling down about it. But at the same time, he says in the song that he has no money because he spent it all on a long distance phone call. So maybe he did get with this girl, but then she changed her mind. She decided to go on with his friend. And then at the end of that song, Got a Broken Heart, you hear a door like slam. And I know a YouTuber that I watched called Prince's Friend, he was saying that, that could be symbolized as like him closing the door on his heart. And you could also say that him closing that door is also him closing the door on the records of the past. This could be him closing the door on that smooth R&B kind of hopeless romantic image that he gave you on For You and the self-titled Prince album. This could be him closing the door on that. And then when the second side opens up with Uptown, this is Prince reintroducing you or introducing you to who he really is, the type of music that he really wants to do, and he's just bursting out of his shell. He's introducing you to his creative process, who he is as an artist. Because the song starts off with Uptown. Now, Uptown is a song that addresses issues such as racism and prejudice and things of that nature. But Uptown is used as a metaphor to describe a utopian type place where you're free to be who you are. So this could be Prince, like I'm saying. This second side could be Prince introducing you to this new person that he is, him being free, him being who he wants to be, and not worrying about what the world thinks. Then you get to the song called Head, which is one of the most sexually explicit songs of Prince's career, where he hooks up with another young lady and convinces her to perform oral sex on him, and then they eventually have sex. And then we get to the song Sister, which is a shocking, controversial song about incest. It's really Prince, him pushing the boundaries. It's him pushing the boundaries of where he wants to go with his music. And then he ends it with Party Up, a up-tempo, funky track that is a great song to dance to, but it also has a message behind, like anti-war. It's another political track. And he's just showing you, he's basically introducing you to who he really is. That's what I feel that Dirty Mind was. Dirty Mind was the album that was introducing you to who Prince really was. And he broke it up into these two different parts. The first part, although sonically it's a different sound, it's still kind of more along the lines of what he did on his first two records. But at the end of Got a Broken Heart again, when he slams that door, he's closing the door on that era of him. And then Uptown kicks off the second side, and he's introducing you to who he really is, who he really wants to be. Because think about it, funk has always been the foundation of Prince's music. And when Uptown kicks off that second side, Prince, he ups the funk. He ups the funk on that side of the record. He ups the funk, and he ups the rock as well. So this was him bursting out of his shell. Dirty Mind was Prince bursting out of his shell and giving you who he really wanted to be as an artist. And it really did set the stage for his career for the remainder of the 80s. Because Prince was somebody that he did all kinds of music. He did almost every type of music. And he always kept people guessing. He always kept people interested. And I think that's what this record was. It was Prince introducing you to the new decade. It's a new year. It's 1980. That Prince of old from the first two records is gone. This is me. This is what I want to do. And he had that. And he had that opportunity to do that. I mean, he blew his budget on the first two records. So he took something from nothing and turned it into something that was so impactful. Because he could have kind of maybe tried to give up after the first two records, or he could have tried to go in a more commercial direction akin to what he did on the Prince album. But he didn't. He did a complete 180, because the Prince album sold 1 million copies. The Prince album sold 1 million copies, and it was a commercial and critical success. Dirty Mind didn't sell as many copies as the Prince album, but it was a huge critical success, and it was a huge success amongst the friend base. So this is Prince he's not really trying to appeal to people to just sell records. He's just wanting to make music the way he wants to with this record. But I just think that was an interesting concept for him to like break this album up into two parts, and he used this record as a way to just reinvent himself, to totally go against the grain of what everybody else was doing, to set himself apart. And it worked because you can't really compare. I don't think you can really put this album up with any other records of that era. I mean, it was just totally different. It was totally different from what everybody else was doing during this period, especially in black music. This was totally a departure from what most artists in black music were doing. And Prince did it, and he pulled it off. But Dirty Mind is one of my favorite Prince albums of all time. It's a lot of people's favorite Prince album, and it's definitely a record that deserves all the accolades that it has gotten. It's such an impactful record, and it's not even that long of a record. It's only got 8 songs, and I think it clocks in at maybe a little over 30 minutes or so, because a few of the songs on there are really short, straight to the point, in typical Pump fashion. And the fact that he released this album in its original demo form, he didn't go back and re-record the songs in an elaborate studio. He recorded all these songs in his home studio because he had no budget, which gives it more of that raw and stripped down feel, which I think it makes it more appealing to fans. And while I keep saying fans, but excuse me, friends, which is why we all tend to gravitate to this record so much, because it's so different. Even today, this 40 years, this year was the 40-year anniversary of this album, and it still sounds radically different. And it's just a great record. It's just a great record, and it really set the stage for what a lot of people were going to be in store for in the next few years in the 80s. It put him on that trajectory of success, and it showed people that he was more than just this hopeless, romantic, doughy-eyed R&B smooth type guy. Like, nah, man, this dude is a beast when it comes to the music. He's not afraid to push the boundaries. He's not afraid to make you cringe. And when I say cringe, I don't mean in a corny way, but in a good way. Like, oh man, I can't believe Prince said that. He's not afraid to be raunchy and risque and maybe make your mama not like him or whatever. He wasn't afraid to do that. So I can imagine how it was being a teenager back in 1980, and you brought this record home. I'm sure a lot of parents probably broke their kids' vinyl records of this album, or threw it out the window, threw it in the trash, man. I'm sure a lot of people who were teenagers or of that age during this period had a lot of stories about that. But such a wonderful album. If you've never listened to Dirty Mind, definitely go and check it out. Go on Spotify, whatever listening platforms that you use to listen to your music. Definitely go on there and check out this album. And that's the reason why I wanted to review this record as opposed to one of his more well-known records like 1999 or, of course, Purple Rain. That's why I wanted to focus on this record, because Prince has so many great records in his discography that people really don't know about or they overlook. And I think this is one of them. I think this is one of them that people just may not know much about. I mean, people who are within the friend base are well acquainted with Dirty Mind, but as far as people who may be novice listeners, they may not be aware. That's why I wanted to cover this album, and because this year and this month was the 40th anniversary. But yes, definitely go and listen to Dirty Mind. Don't just take my word for it, although I do hope that my word influenced you to check out the album, but just go and listen to it for yourself. Just go listen to it for yourself, and I guarantee you're gonna enjoy this record. I just want to take the time to say thanks to everybody for tuning in to this week's episode. Hope you really enjoyed the content. If you did, please be sure to follow me on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Anchor, all at The Boombox Guru. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Boombox Guru. You can like my Facebook page, The Boombox Guru. Be sure to tell your friends, your family, anybody that you know that may be interested in music commentary, music discussion. Be sure to tell them, like the page, follow the pages, share it. Just really help to promote and get me out there, everybody. And as always, I hope you all have a good day and you be blessed. Peace out.